All right, guys, it's time for another episode of Talking Preps. You guys ready?
I'm ready.
Yes, sir.
It should be a fun show. Here we go. All right, Brandon, let's get right to it. Who are your players to watch? I got the wrong headline on top of it. Who are your players to watch for the past week?
Well, first off, we have Myanna Ford at Westminster Catawba. She had 35 points in a game versus Metrolina earlier in the week and followed that up with a 32-point performance for South Lake, leading her team to a 2-0 record this week. Camry Hobbs is on the list again. She had 29 points and 6 rebounds Tuesday night in a loss versus West Rowan. Cameron Kitchen, 21 points against Butler Friday night and scored her 1,000th career point as a junior. Blair Riley from Forest View in a win over Hunter Hust on Friday. Riley had 21 points, 14 rebounds, 7 blocks, and 3 assists.
Randall, what is it with these young ladies in Gaston County? We talk about Amaya every week with these crazy numbers. Now Riley's with these crazy numbers. What's going on in Gaston County? What's in the water out there?
They are putting up stats, that's for sure, out there in Gaston County. So it's been pretty fun to watch. I love watching the smaller towns have success for sure.
Absolutely. And then you got your player of the week.
My player of the week, Miss Samantha Sheehan from Lake Norman. She scored 33 points and had 7 boards against West Cabarrus on Thursday night. And they averaged 20 points last week as her team went 3-0.
Samantha, welcome to the show. How's it going this year with Lake Norman?
I think it's going good. Definitely we've gotten better since our preseason because we had preseason games and we definitely had things to fix. But I think so far this year we've all bonded together and created this chemistry that just making us way better as a team. And I think individually I've definitely worked hard to increase my performance. So I think it's going successful so far.
Now most teams get a winter break, but you guys had a winter break. How did it happen? You had so many days off with 25 days?
Yeah. We had our break and then we're supposed to play games like 2 weeks in a row and they both got canceled. So we had to wait even longer, which was definitely disappointing. So
how'd you stay sharp?
We had the actually Catawba, old people who played used to play Catawba at Catawba and they'd come into practice and compete against us, and we had the hardest practices just to make sure we stayed sharp and in shape. So we had just really drilled down practices before games.
So before I let Randall go, last week, as you may know, Randall put out his list of Miss Basketball potential players. It can change. But we got a message from the Lake Norman Twitter account saying you guys misspelled Samantha Sheehan. I just want to know how you felt about that.
I had no idea that. I had no idea that.
That is a great answer, Sam. Good job. Sam, the reason why, though, I literally told them last week, I said they haven't played, and they played one game in 21 days. I haven't seen them.
Exactly.
It's kind of out of sight, out of mind, but that's I love your answer.
It's true.
How hard was it? You come out Tuesday night, you haven't played in 3 weeks. Was there rust that you guys had to knock off when you guys got on the floor Tuesday?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I feel like we're missing stuff. We were just a step behind, but we finally got the hang of it. But we had to have a lot of subs just to make sure everyone was right. And then I don't know, there's definitely rust, but we finally got the hang of it mid-game. But hopefully we're good and we'll have a quicker start Tuesday and Thursday.
But tell me about the game coming up. I know we don't want to jump over Tuesday's game, but everybody's talking about the Hickory Ridge game. You guys getting a big test for Hickory Ridge. And I saw Jupiter Wilson Gary's birthday party on Saturday. And all they talked about was, playing Lake Norman. So they got to do talk about that game.
All right. Talk about the game on Thursday?
Yeah.
Okay, so that was actually the game that got canceled. We're all ready to go, but there's definitely been some talk between the teams saying, we're going to beat you. It's an easy game, stuff like that. So I think we're all getting ready for it, mentally, and just we're just going to be ready to go by Thursday. This is the game of the year for us. And we're just going to go out and do what we do and hopefully execute our game plan.
Yeah, it's one of the biggest games of the year for anybody, not just you guys. I was curious, I was at the state championship game and saw you guys and saw how well you played. I know it was disappointing to lose, but how much is that driving you guys to kind of get back to the state championship game again?
Yeah, it's definitely driving us a lot because I mean last year we had like an undefeated season and we didn't really experience loss. And this year we finally did experience loss. So it's definitely making us try to have our get back to the championship, and definitely like losing the championship sucks. So we have just even more drive and motivation to just get back up there and win it this time.
All right. Well, listen, good luck to you. Thanks for coming on with us. Good luck in the game this week. And hopefully next time Randall puts out his men's basketball watch list, he'll remember how to spell Samantha Sheehan. Wasn't me.
Thank you.
It wasn't like. All right. Take care, Sam.
Thank you.
All right. So Samantha Sheehan of Lake Norman. Randall, how impressed are you with how she's playing this year?
She's playing really well, but I think the interesting part about Lake Norman on the girls' side is they have, 4 players who at any point in time can get you between Addie Sirianni, Sam Sheehan, Alexis Sheehan, and Kelsey Ryan.
Don't forget my favorite lefty.
It's hard. It is a very challenging task, and you just don't know who's you have to stop on a night in, night out basis. And you slow one of them down, and then the other one gets hot, and then you go to put out that fire, and then there's another one. They got a really good basketball team, and I'm excited to watch them as we get deeper into February and March.
And then defensively, they kind of hit you kind of with that centric bass, unorthodox kind of pressure. They press you on makes and misses, so you have to kind of be ready for that. And then they can hit you with a barrage of points. So they're going to be a factor deep in the playoffs, I think. All right, Richard, tell us about the boys' players of the week.
Well, last weekend we had the show. You asked the question, how does someone get on the Mr. Basketball watch list? And Trent Stanauer from Lake Norman did exactly just that. He had 2 games last week where he averaged 19.5 points a game, 12.5 rebounds a game, but more importantly, had 5 block shots. And, if we were doing an all defensive team, he would probably be
we will do
one all defensive team. So he's had an outstanding week, and he's having an outstanding year. The great thing about it is Lake Norman, if you look at the RPI rankings on the NCHSAA, they're number 1. They're 14-1. They played a very difficult schedule, so he's putting up great numbers against great competition. The other guy is one of the top unsigned seniors in the state of North Carolina, and that's 6'7" Mario Hansen. How often do we get a guy that does a triple-double?
And a big man.
This past week, he had 25 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Yeah. And if you look at his stats for the year, he's averaging almost 17 points a game, 10 rebounds a game. But more importantly, how many times do you see a post player average almost 5 assists a game? So he's having that year. Chambers is 11-6. And again, this is against quality competition. They have played one of the toughest schedules in the state of North Carolina.
Yeah.
And next up is Jackson Bannon from East Lincoln, 36 points, having 10 3-pointers, set a school record for 3-pointers. Also 6'3" junior Brett Freeman from Audrey Cale. He's a transfer. He's really helped things out at Audrey Cale and Mike Kraft, 26 points and a win, and he's averaged almost 18 points a game in 9 games that he's been at Audrey Cale. And then last but not least is Mr. Paul McNeil. Broke the single game scoring record with 71 points, and he's a phenomenal person and a phenomenal player.
Randall, when you saw that, everybody was talking about the 71. I mean, what did you think? I mean, that's nuts. So,
I mean, I think mentally you just have to be extremely focused and locked in to go put a performance up like that. That is not an easy feat, especially not in high school. You're talking about a 32-minute game, and some of it was running clock. Like, he really was locked in and had it going the other night.
Yeah, and then the next game he had almost 40 and scored his 2,000 points. So he's having a phenomenal season. Rick, he definitely going to be a candidate for Mr. Basketball, right? One of the finalists, you think?
Absolutely, definitely in the running, at the top of the list. The one thing about Paul McNeil is everything is so effortless as far as on the offensive side of the court. He's so smooth, very fluid. And if you look at that jump shot, it just, like I said before, it's effortless.
Yeah, that was deep out there. He's pretty special. All right, let's find out who balled out, Randall. We got 5 newbies. So we're going to start out with Kenzie Orshad of Northwest Cabarrus. Big game.
Kenzie's a really good young player. She can shoot it. She's really a 3-level scorer. Can put the ball on the floor a little bit, getting to the basket, as you can see here. Really solid player. So I've enjoyed watching her. She can score it on the inside and outside, which is not necessarily typical in the girls' game.
Yeah, she had average 12.6 rebounds, 2 assists against Cox Mill and Russ Rand last week. I mean, she's showing, the highlights was in a little bit of everything on the fast break. Then we got Derek Ely as one of the smaller guys in the area, but he's averaging 11 points, shooting 52% from the field, 7.3 rebounds, Randall, 7.6 assists. Little big man.
I love it because it just proves my point that rebounding is nothing more than just wanting the basketball. Like, you got to want to go get it. And this is a prime example why, he's probably one of the smallest guys on the floor night in and night out. And he just goes and finds the basketball.
He's having a great season. Hit a game winner against Chambers earlier this year. Just very impressive. Then Noah Van Buren of St. Stephen's, Randall, averaged 14 points, had 14 points against East Lincoln, which is a 3A power. 6 out of 12 from the field, 2 out of 6 from 3. He had 6 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal. Just looks really good. Kind of a all-around game there. Got a little floater there.
I love the fact that we're getting some of these schools that we don't get to talk about on a week-in, week-out basis. Giving them some love, showing that they have some kids that can play as well.
Well, they call it the Hoop State. Christian Jones, a freshman, had 40 points early in the year from Mountain Island Charter. He's averaging 22 a night, Randall, 2.5 steals, 2 rebounds, 2 assists per game.
Yeah, he's one of those kids that can really score. He's been scoring it from all 3 levels. He's really scary and coming downhill. I've seen him knock down some outside shots too. So I'm looking forward to seeing him over the next couple of years.
Well, we're going to have a little run of freshman right here because it looks like we got some really good ones. CeCe Coleman out of West Charlotte had 37 points against Morrow, Georgia in the Christmas tournament, and my man was going to the hole.
Yeah, he was filling it up on that night. I love the fact that they got the counter on there, so you can just see how many points he was pouring in.
I love how he's going to the rim
over the break.
Ones too. And then LJ Smith, the leading freshman scorer in North Carolina. Watch this, Rick. Boom! You got to see that.
I was just talking.
You got to see it one more time. Hold on. Got to get the crowd involved.
The one thing about LJ is he's explosive and he's wired to score.
Absolutely. And your guy, Randall Sir Muhammad's coming back from that shoulder. Look, feet work. As Jack would say, feet work.
I love the pass. I love the pass from Bishop Boswell too. Great finish right there by Sir.
No, they're having a good season. That's if you guys want to, get your highlights on, we definitely want to get you guys on what do we call the segment? Who Balled Out. We definitely get you guys highlights on and get you on Who Balled Out. So make sure you email those or drop us a DM or something so you can come on. All right, now we're going to talk about the games of the week. And I'm a little bit out of sorts. I got all excited watching those highlights. And Randall switched up his games of the week on me, so I'm a little lost anyway to start with. But Randall, tell us about your big girls games of the week.
Well, we're gonna start off first. We got South Meck and Audrey Kell. That's one of those games. It's a rivalry game. 2 teams that are going to be really excited to match up against each other. It's one of the most exciting rivalries on the girls' side. As the Sabres go visit the Knights, records you can kind of throw them out of the window here, but this is a battle for second place in the SOMAC. So it should be a very good contest. Next up, as we talked about,
hold on. We got Coach Mitchell. We can't talk about South Meck and not have.
I'm so sorry. My bad, Coach.
Coach Mitchell, tell us about this game and how hard is it to win at Audrey Kell in a rivalry game like this?
Oh, it's definitely hard to win at AK. I mean, these atmospheres, just like the South Meck Myers Park game on Friday night, these SOMAC atmospheres are really, really fun to play in and coach in. On paper, Myers Park, Audrey Kell and South Meck look very similar. I mean, they're averaging about the same as far as team averages. For South, they just lost to undefeated Myers Park by 7 points on Friday night. They stuck with them, a very close game. They fought the whole time. So I still expect good things to come out of South Meck this year. South is led by Michaela Davis, who, I think she's averaging about 17, 18 points a game. What is she now? She is actually 20 points a game. She is the motor of that team. 20 points a game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 5 steals, to go along with freshman KB Brown and sophomore Caitlin Hensley, who both chip in about 9 points each. Again, for AK, Molly Burns, 16 points, and sophomore Autumn Washington adds 12 points, 8 rebounds a game. This is definitely going to be a big matchup. Second place is on the line. We'll see what it looks like. This is actually the reschedule game from January 7th. So this game has been like hanging on for a couple weeks. So I know both teams are ready.
Well, speaking of hanging on, Randall, we had Samantha saying this is the game of the year for Lake Norman. So what's going to happen when Lake Norman faces Jupiter Wilson, Hickory Ridge?
Got to go on the road. We're going to find out a lot about this Lake Norman team. As we talked about, they're a really good team. They got some players that can really play, and they fit different roles, and they kind of all embrace their job and do it. But Hickory Ridge, as we know, is a hard place to play, and Coach Richmond can attest to that. So I'm expecting a very, very competitive game Thursday night.
They're made in
these.
Go ahead.
One of the things I was thinking about, is they both had a game plan in for last week, and then the game got postponed because of the weather.
Right.
And so you go play other teams, and you kind of have to put that game plan away because the way girls basketball is this season, most teams only have, at least the top level teams in each conference. They only have one they really got a game plan for. And so you kind of put things away and come back to it later on. So it'll be interesting to see what each team does differently than what they would normally do. Most coaches always say, well, we do what we do. Well, when you got a big opponent, you got to do a little something different. And I want to see what each team is going to do differently.
Sound like you calling for the upset.
No, I'm not calling for an upset. I just want to see what they do differently. I saw Hickory Ridge play Friday night, and they pretty much do what they do or did most of the season. And there wasn't any need to change. But when you play an opponent, they're both playing for first place. They know each other well, as we talked about it previous to the postponement. Lake Norman has probably won 5 games in a row against Hickory Ridge, and they all have been single-digit games. And so you want to kind of see what Jupiter is going to pull out of his bag to give them a different look. And you also want to see how well Lake Norman is going to play without Kristen Lewis-Williams, who is a Hickory Ridge killer.
She's an everybody killer. Randall, every year East Berks has a good basketball team. Sounds like they have another one this year.
I mean, it's unbelievable. They're averaging about 67 points a game. They're led by Braylon Stillwell. The Cavaliers average 17 steals a night. So they create a lot of their offense with defense. Maiden is trying to keep up with East Berk because East Berk right now sits at 15-0. Maiden is 5-1 in conference, and so this is a first place game coming up Friday night.
And that's a big rivalry. Those schools in football, they have something called Fat Friday when they play each other. It's always a big deal. It draws a lot of fans, and the boys and girls games will be sold out, I'm sure. Kind of like South Meck and Myers Park last week. All right, big private school game, Providence Day and Latin.
We get a common theme here this week, as a lot of these games are battles for second place. The Chargers come and they're going to visit the Hawks in a very intriguing battle. Two sophomores. We had Jada McClure on here last week. She'll take on the other sophomore, Charlotte Toon. 2 really, really good players that I enjoy watching. They can really score the basketball. High IQ kids that play the game the right way. Should be an interesting matchup as they battle for second place.
And then we got this isn't quite a holler championship, Gary, but back your way with Huff and North Meck. What are you looking for in that game?
I'm looking to see if Huff can take it to the next level. I call this one the Highway 115 rivalry. Huff, last week we talked about how there's a big gap between the top tier girls teams in each conference. Yeah. And there was very little middle class. Well, right. Huff in the middle class looking to get to that next level. So this will be a test for them to see, can they get to that next level, how far they're off from being able to compete on a consistent basis with North Meck and Mount Creek.
Should be a good one. I mean, that's another rivalry situation which should draw a big crowd.
North Mac riding the 8-game winning streak as well, so it's gonna be a challenge for Huff. That's for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, Richard, let's flip it on the boys' side.
Well, you have a huge week for Coach Grant at Lake Norman. They play 2 big road games. They go to Mooresville, which is 6 miles away, and Mooresville's 4-1 in conference, and of course Lake Norman's undefeated. And then the other big game is Lake Norman at Hickory Ridge later in the week. And Hickory Ridge is 14-3 and 4-0 in the conference. So if Lake Norman can get by this week going undefeated on the road against 2 of the better teams in the conference, they have a chance to run the table, and they will battle Myers Park for the #1 seed in Western North Carolina.
Wow, big week for them. And that showdown at Motown to start out. But then you got a big game on Wednesday, South Meck. Coming off that Myers Park loss, they can't afford to go 2 games behind the Mustangs, and Audrey Kell wants to stay right there for the conference championship too, right, Rick?
Well, this is a battle for second place. No one's catching Myers Park. I mean, Myers Park is in a class by themselves, but this is battle for second place without question.
Playoff seeds.
Playoff seeding.
And then this Covenant Day team beat Christ School on Saturday. They're really hitting the stride, Rick.
I tell you what, Michael Laney in the second year at Covenant Day has done a fantastic job over there, and they've beaten some quality teams. And, I think they beat Northside Christian earlier in the week, and then come back and beat Christ School. So they're a team on the rise, and look for good things to happen for them in the playoffs.
And the Cannon School's not going to be happy coming in off that Providence Day loss. That could be a really interesting game. And
that was one of the most surprising losses of this season. I think we all picked Cannon to win that game over Providence.
Providence Day got out of the 50s, and when they start scoring, they're harder to beat because they do play defense well. But the problem is they always kind of they keep their scoring down and keep your scoring down.
They slow it down. They're very methodical on the offensive end of the court.
Yeah, it sounds like they're maybe opening up a little bit. And then we got the Battle of Union County. The 2 best teams in that county went into the Marble Ridge.
Well, this is the battle for the conference regular season championship. This is the one game that I look at the calendar that Weddington may have some difficulty on. It's on the road against Marble Ridge. If they can get by this, I think they'll run the table as well.
Well, I think that's the first of 2, so that should be interesting to see what happens. But yeah,
they're going to be hard to beat at home, though.
Yeah. No, I mean, Weddington looks like the favorite, but these rivalry games, you kind of never ever know. Randall, you already got in trouble with your Miss basketball pick, so I'm really curious to see how much trouble you're going to get in with your mid-season all-observer picks. So tell us what you did here and why.
Well, I mean, the biggest thing for me is that winning always matters. And I think, when you look at it, with the Miss basketball, it was more, the scope is bigger. So you got way more kids to choose from. This one, I think, you want to reward kids for winning basketball games. We start off with Lily Booker at Mallard Creek, Ashana Holland again and Stuart Kramer, Ella Hobbs, who was unfortunately tore her ACL, but she had a great start of the season. And since this is a midseason award, I put her on there. Blanca Thomas, as you know, walking double-double. And Delaney Hill from Providence, averaging 20 points a game this year, has been really good for them. On the second team, Michaela Davis, who we talked about, averages 20 a night. She's been really, really good. Sam Sheehan averages about 20 a night, too. She's shooting over 40% from 3. Brooklyn Saunders is one of my favorite players on the list because her and Michaela are similar. They are the engines of their teams, 2-way players. She's a stat stuffer. She scores it. She'll get assists. She gets steals. She gets rebounds and really does a great job. Elle Stone is a kid that can just put the ball in the basket. And seeing how that Mallard Creek team has come together, adding with the addition of Lily Booker, has been very, very interesting. And I feel like a kid that we talk about every week, Amaya Graham, averaging 19 and 15. I know people probably don't get to see her often, but, those numbers you can't deny. I don't care who you're playing.
She's balling. I mean, that day she had 25 and 26, and the coach actually said it was really 25 and 32 after watching the Huddle film. So that was pretty impressive. Then you got the third team there with Ella's sister, Camry.
Third team, the other Hobbs. Camry's done a great job. She was having a really good season, and ever since her sister went down, she really stepped up. She's been scoring the basketball at a high clip. She rebounds really well. Grayson Goff, another kid at Catholic who can knock down outside shots, does a really good job of making shots and getting to the basket and to the free throw line. Cam Kitchen, who we talk about every week, she got her 1,000 point this week. really, really a 3-level scorer that can really beat you in a variety of ways. Madison Drayton, I got to see on Tuesday night, and it was actually really fun to watch her play as well. That team at Cannon is really young, but she can really play. And last but not least, your favorite lefty, Miss Kelsey Ryan out at Lake Norman. She averages about 17 a night. I mean, like we said, they got 4 kids out there that can really, really play.
You got my 2 shooters on the 3rd team. I don't know if I'm down with that. Coach Mitchell, Gary, did he get it right or did he get it wrong? Who's missing?
It's very subjective. I don't have a problem with it. I know there's some other kids that could be on there. Truesdale from Myers Park could be on there.
Yeah. Lanice Joseph.
It's so many kids that could make it mid-season, and it's good. It's not an official. This is not our official awards. Between first, second, third, all of them could be first, and all of them could be third.
It can definitely be a lot of movement between these lists for sure.
There's one player I would move off second on the first, but that's another argument for another day. Coach Mitchell, any thoughts here?
No, I agree with Randall and Gary both. I mean, this is a great list to start off with. And just like Gary said, this list can shuffle up. I can see any of these girls moving from 3rd to 1st or 2nd to 1st. I mean, I can see it. I mean, we've still got, the entire conference one more time and maybe 1 or 2 games in the conference left. I mean, we still have 6-8 games left in the season. So I can see some movement.
Absolutely. In the big playoffs after that. Well, that's the interesting list. I'm sure Randall will get, and make sure you direct your comments to @the1RC on Twitter and Instagram. Not me. I didn't pick this. This is his list. My list will be different. At the end of the year, Randall, Coach Rick, and myself will all get together and we'll pick the official Charlotte Observer team. Rick last year had us add all defensive and all offensive. Popular, so we're going to go back and do that again. So I appreciate him coming up with those suggestions. All right, Richard, we're going to look at who you picked on your boys' midseason team, which I thought was every bit as interesting as Randall's team. So take it away.
Well, first of all, the first team is absolutely loaded with high major prospects. If you look at the first 2, Isaiah Evans going to Duke and Austin Swartz going to Miami, those are 2 of the most prolific scorers in the state of North Carolina. Then you look at the bottom 3, Sadiq White, Bishop Boswell, and Sir Muhammad. The thing that separates these 3 guys from a lot of players in the state of North Carolina, they're on the first team observer list and also on the watch list, but they're 3 of the best defensive players in the state of North Carolina. So they would probably make the first team all defensive team in the state as well. Second team, we have Carson Daniel and DJ Kent of Central Cabarrus. And those 2 guys, they've done it extremely well this year. They score, they rebound, they make assists, and they get steals, and they just know how to play the game of basketball. And that's the reason why Central Cabarrus is, nationally ranked and undefeated this season. We talked about Mario Hansen earlier with the triple-double. He's one of the best unsigned big men in the state of North Carolina. You're looking at someone who's averaging 17 points a game, 8 rebounds, and 5 assists, which is absolutely tremendous for somebody his size. Cam Taylor is one of the most explosive players in the state of North Carolina, averaging 24 points a game. And he has Carmel Christian on the rise. If you look at Carmel Christian, they played one of the toughest schedules at the private school level.
Absolutely.
They're now 12-10. And don't be surprised if Carmel Christian makes a run in the private school 4A playoffs.
We saw that with Northside last year. They went in with like a 15-10 or 12 record and, went all the way to the chip. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, there's a lot of different, thought processes on scheduling. We've discussed that before offline, but you look at some of these teams, they're not bashful about playing really tough teams. And you look at, like Chambers and Carmel Christian, they play 2 of the toughest. And you look next at Santana Lynch. Santana Lynch is averaging a double-double, almost 15 points a game, 10 rebounds. And, he has Lake Norman, one of the best teams in the 4A and a dark horse, in my opinion, for the 4A state championship.
Wow.
Third team, Isaiah Henry at Cannon, just a big, strong, athletic guard. Trent Steinauer, which we probably made a mistake. I will take responsibility for that. He probably should have been on the Mr. Observer watch list from the very beginning. But here's someone that I think has an opportunity to average in double figures with points, rebounds, and probably over 5 block shots a game. And he's going to be a high major prospect in the ACC.
Wow.
Next up is KJ Younger from Weddington. He's averaging 23 points a game. Big, strong, physical guard. Another player that knows how to play both ends of the court. He's a very, very good defensive player as well. Tyler Showalter's having an outstanding year at Butler. The lefty is really giving Butler a chance to compete for the conference championship over there. And then the final person is Chase Daniel, the twins, Chase and Carson. They're one of the best 1-2 combos in the state as far as the guard position.
Absolutely. I guess the only thing I saw in there, Randall, Mike Jones at Indian Land's having a phenomenal season. I would have considered him, but I thought, other than that, I thought Rick pretty much had it. What do you think?
I mean, I don't know who you would take off. This is really good. I think, you got kids on here that affect the game in multiple ways and not just all scoring. They can score it, they can rebound it, they sit down and defend, especially when you look at the second half of this list.
Yeah, no, that's a tough list. 3 Marsh Park kids on the first team is crazy.
And also something that RC said earlier, winning matters.
Yes.
I think that's one thing that we have to take in consideration. All these players are playing on teams that are high level teams. They're really good teams that's played a really, really tough schedule, and they're doing it against high competition. And they're winning.
Yeah, no, it's a big deal. All right, time for the roundtable. So Randall hit me on social media or text, or I don't know. Me and Randall talked so many different ways during the week, and he showed me something about there was a poll put out, and the question was, would you rather score 50? Make sure I'm getting this right, Randall. Would you rather score 50 and lose, or win the game in overtime or something like that? And I was wondering, is that right? Is that right?
I mean, would you rather score 50 points? Or would you, or lose would you rather win or score 50 points? Essentially, is what the question.
Yeah, basically like that. And it got us to thinking. And I'm Coach Mitchell. I'm going to start with you because you coached most recently of everybody on here in high school. Are coaches under pressure now to play kids to chase stats all the time?
I definitely think so. I think that the pressure isn't necessarily like coming from parents or kids or whatever, but it does matter. When you look at making an all-district team or all-state team, making the East-West All-Star game, making the accolades after the season is over, everybody knows who the best kids are in the conference. That's no. But when it goes a little bit bigger, is somebody going to get voted on all-state who, averaged 15 points, 5 rebounds, or somebody who averages 35 points, 2 rebounds? And I also think because of the social media era that we're in now, people want to see it. So, if I score 50 points, then I'm gonna be all over. I'm gonna go viral for a couple of days. But I definitely think that it's a lot of pressure on the coach on how do you coach it? Do you leave the kid in so they can get that double or that triple-double, or do you use your bench players a little bit?
Gary, you about as outspoken on most things anybody I've ever run across. Go ahead.
Well, it's kind of like Christy said. Parents and kids want to post their stats to social media, but what they don't say is, "Oh, we were playing a bad team."
Yeah.
And we've talked about it on consecutive weeks here about how bad girls basketball has become in Charlotte because of the lack of competition, and there have been many games where a player on the dominant team outscored the whole other team.
Yeah. And,
but the people who are not local, they don't see it that way. They just see, oh, this player scored 20-something points, or this player had 10 steals. They don't realize they were playing against kids that had the skill level of somebody in middle school.
Well, here's an example, and I would throw this to Rick. And nothing against Paul McNeil, but he scored 71 points the other night. And then you look at, and that's going to be a state record in 30 years from now. That probably lasts a long time. People still talk about that state record. And I understand if I'm that coach, he's got a shot. And I'm sure somebody was checking on the phone. Oh man, he's close. I don't blame him. But you see a guy like Isaiah Evans last year score 62 points in a state playoff game against a top 5 ranked 4A team. There's a little bit of difference there, to Gary's point. But I mean, how do you? I want you to respond to that, but then also tell me how you feel about this trend where people want to like run their stats up.
Well, in a situation with Paul McNeil, I sort of understand it. If I'm the coach at Richmond County, I would have probably been very in favor of him breaking the record. The main reason is he's a high-profile player. He's been nationally ranked his entire career since he's been a ninth grader. Mm-hmm. He's a young man who's been pressured to go to prolific prep. He just went out there for a few weeks, came back, was pressured to go to Word of God. At the end of the day, he stayed at Richmond County. So if I'm the coach and also Richmond County, he stayed there for all 4 years, mm-hmm. I would throw him a bone. I say, hey, go for it. On the other hand, you're making a comparison between what Isaiah Evans did last year. You know, we're comparing apples to oranges. It is probably more impressive that Isaiah had 60-some points in a conference tournament championship game. That's probably going to be more impressive. But at the end of the day, a lot of these records on the record book is based on a lot of performances where they were going up against inferior competition. Yeah. Now, my point to this is, you know, with the trend as far as, you know, the individual stats, I want to use two illustrations. You know, I've always had this, you know, the impression that team success equals individual success. If you're successful as a team, you're going to be successful individually. And I'm going to look at Myers Park. The three guys from Myers Park, Sir Muhammad, Sadiq White, and Bishop Boswell, don't have the great stats that some of the other guys have, but they're all going to be very successful, and they're going to get the individual accolades because of that. The other person I want to mention is Drake Powell at Northwood. Drake Powell might average 15 points a game, 10 rebounds, 6 or 7 assists, block shots. He's not the type of player that's going to go out there and score 30 points. That's just not his game. But he's one of the best defenders in the state and also in the country. And that's the reason why all the national polls and ranking services has Drake Powell as a national.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But Christy, when you're voting for all district teams and stuff like that, and you're not really sure about who it is you're voting for in certain places, I mean, how much does that 27 points matter versus the 4? Like, you know, somebody averaging 14 on the team is more balanced.
Well, the way that all district voting goes is you vote 10-1. So the best player that you think is in that district is given a 10 points, and it goes all the way down to 1. And there might be 30 or 40 girls. And, you know, the ones that you really know are the ones that are around your area. But, you know, you may not be familiar with the girls from, you know, other counties that are really close by. And a lot of times you either have to do some research on them or you're just going off strictly based on stats.
But how much?
Another thing about that point system that Christy's talking about, coaches are notorious for giving a player who they think may bump their player.
Absolutely.
Lower points and give their player higher points or some other player higher points so that their player can make the team.
Right.
And so, you know, when the point system is not balanced, a lot of times it's for personal reasons and not really basketball reasons.
I understand. Go ahead,
I think the big thing is just looking at it from a kid's perspective. I think that's the part that was shocking to me. And I don't want to sound like an old man, but I can't tell you how many times I've had kids tell me like, oh, I'm going to get my 1,000 point this game. I'm going to get my 500 rebound this game. I'm going to get my 500 block. It's amazing to me how these kids know their stats. And when I was growing up playing, like we just wanted to win the game. And you found out, you know, after the fact that you scored 1,000. So I honestly believe that for some of these coaches, there is pressure there. Like if this kid doesn't average this or doesn't play this many minutes a night, and she's not making all observer, she's not, you know, making first team, like she has to transfer and go somewhere else, you know, to accomplish his goals. And I understand goal setting. Don't get me wrong, but I think there's a fine line between setting a goal of, you know, accomplishing things and chasing stats.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a very interesting discussion, but we'll leave it there. It's time for coach versus coach. Are you ready, Christy?
Yep.
All right, here we go.
Okay. So this week, Gino Ariema said that the NIL is making basketball transactional. Let's take a listen to what he has to say.
So what kind of relationship can you have with somebody that is telling you, I might be here 1, maybe 2, maybe 3, maybe 4, or I might be at 4 schools in 4 years? And this has nothing to do with the money. Forget the money part. This is about the ability that you can just walk out anytime you want. So how do you coach in an environment where the players feel like they owe you nothing and you owe them everything? What kind of relationship can you have?
Good point. Gary, what you think?
Well, he's saying it's an NIL issue, but I think it's a transfer portal issue. That you can leave. If it's not over money, then it's a transfer portal issue. If it were for money, I think then it would be an NIL issue. And so I don't think NIL impacts basketball nearly as much as it impacts football, because you have to pay more player in football than you do in basketball. I think he put it in the context of NIL, but he really needs to talk about the transfer portal, because that's what that is. That's an issue of players leaving because they don't get their way, or they don't get the playing time they want, or they don't get the exposure that they want, so they go somewhere else. And so that's my opinion, that it's a transfer portal issue more so than an NIL issue.
I definitely believe that there's a issue with kids these days being able to deal with adversity, and that's why we have so many kids in the transfer portal. But the other side of this is sometimes you have these coaches, and basically when you sign these deals to go to school, it's basically a 1-year contract right now. And if you don't fit my system and you don't fit what I'm trying to do, I'm going to come to you politely at the end of the season and say, hey, thanks, but we need to find somewhere else for you to play because this ain't it. So I think it's two sides to it. I understand what Gino was saying, but there's another side that he didn't address as well.
So do you think that it's ruining college basketball? Is it good for the kids and bad for the coaches?
I don't think it's good for anybody, because I think a lot of these coaches spend more time trying to recruit their own kids than they were, spend trying to recruit other kids.
If you look at the big name coaches that have retired in the last 2 years, whether it be football or basketball, it wasn't because they didn't have the energy to do it anymore. It was because of this NIL transfer portal issue. And they all came out and said, why should I have to recruit you every year? I recruited you once. You know what I'm about. I know what you're about. Why do we have to go through this song and dance every single season? And that's the issue. That's why Kay and Roy and Jay Wright and Nick Saban and all these top coaches in football and basketball, they're getting out. They're walking away from $10 million a year because they don't want to deal with this issue of having to re-recruit their own players after they've already recruited them in high school.
Well, last week, Nike signed AJ Dabansa, the number 1 player in the class of 2025, and Jersey Robinson, the number 1 girls player in 2026, to NIL shoe deals. 5 years from now, what will high school basketball look like with the NIL money coming in like this?
It's going to look crazy, and I tell you why. I got a phone call this week from a kid that moved from a non-NIL state to a NIL state. Now, just let that sink in. Your whole family uproots themselves from where you live and moves somewhere else because we can't get an NIL deal. NIL isn't going anywhere, and it's going to, in 5 years, it's really, really going to look different as you look at teams and kids, doing these things, right now.
It's funny that you say that, because last week our national conversation was about a shot clock. Now we need to have a national conversation about NIL. But the only problem is going to be what happened to the NCAA. If they put in a national rule about NIL, high school kids NIL, then somebody's going to take it to court. And just like the NCAA is going to be restraint of trade, and They're gonna say, no, you can't do that. And like Randall said, it's gonna totally be out of control because the high school federation won't be able to control it. And we're already in a mixed system with some states got shot clock, some states got NIL, some states have this eligibility rule. Nothing is universal anymore. And so, yeah, it's going to be quite different unless they can figure out a way to not only come up with a national system, but one that's foolproof in the courtroom.
How bad has AAU and high school recruiting become? And what do we do to fix this?
It's become very bad on so many levels. It really just depends on where you want to start. Yeah, I mean, there we go. You got, and it works in several different ways of, yeah, we don't want you going over to play with this specific team because all their coaches are from, this school and they're going to try to get you to come over there. And it seems far-fetched to a lot of people, but the reality of it is very, very true.
Well, we already know that AAU has become more important than high school, which I can't stand, But and the reason for that is easy for college kids or college coaches to go to an AAU event or a travel event and see numerous players at one time throughout a day. And they only have to go to one site as opposed to doing it the old school way where they have to go to a city and they have to go to 4 high schools on Monday. And then they have to go to another 4 high schools on Tuesday. And they have to go to another 4 high schools on Wednesday. They don't have to do that now with travel ball and AAU. So if parents know that the way to get that scholarship is through AAU, and the high schools are not as important anymore, it then becomes important for high school coaches to figure out a way to make up that disadvantage. And so that's where the high school recruiting comes in. I need to get this player, I need to get that player, or else I'm going to lose the power that I have over AAU for getting my kids into college. I had some pretty successful programs when I was coaching, and one of the things I would tell parents, and I was honest about it, I say, I got this player that's D1, I got this player that's D1. If your kid comes to my school, then when those colleges see player 1 and player 2, they're going to see your kid too. And it becomes a reciprocal thing where you're selling your school and you're telling parents that you have a better chance of getting your kid in school if they come to your school. And now with the transfer portal, we know their high school scholarships are not as prevalent as college scholarships for high school kids are not nearly as prevalent as they used to be 4 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Rick,
relationships definitely matter when you talk about that. When you talk about,
Rick, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Rick.
High school recruiting. When you talk about high school recruiting, the relationships do matter. And I think that's a conversation that more coaches need to have, or as more parents need to have with coaches is, okay, what relationships do you have? What levels are we talking about? Where can you get, my kid into school? Because that's super important when you think about, where you're going to send your kid.
Yeah. Now, Rick put in the chat, he had a great conversation with our college coach about the 5 layers of recruiting. Rick, just real quick, kind of go over the 5 layers of recruiting out there.
Yeah. 5 layers of recruiting today is number 1. And I think we mentioned it earlier. You have to re-recruit your own players. That's rule number 1. At the end of the season, college coaches have to re-recruit their players. Yeah. Number 2, they recruit the portal. Number 3 is JUCO. Number 4 is post-grad. And number 5 is high school. Wow. And that's the 5 layers that most of in high school is the low end of the totem pole. Yeah. And, there's such a push that, college coaches are wanting to win immediately. Yeah. Their job's on the line. If you're a college coach and you need a 6'6" wing, are you going to go out and get a 6'6" wing who's 22 years old, who's in his, 3rd year in college, or are you going to get a 6'6" wing who's just coming out of high school? And that's the mentality.
25 years old. Let's get it right. 25, 26 years old nowadays. It's crazy. That sounds like a topic for a future roundtable. That topic.
But I want to make.
I think.
This
I think the perfect example.
You know, I think a lot of the college coaches really don't trust their eyes and their gut. And I'm going to use two examples. Chase Lowe was at Weddington. He basically had 0 D1 offers, you know, his senior year.
Yeah.
You know, I think it originally when he went to William and Mary, it was a situation, you know, it was a late offer. He's there at William and Mary. He's having a phenomenal year at William and Mary. The question they had with Chase is he really couldn't shoot the ball that well from the outside. But you know what? He played on the state championship. That won 2 state championships. The young man knows how to win. And guess what? He's taken those attributes to William and Mary. Another good example is
now they got to recruit him at the end of the year.
And another example is Nick Dorn. And this is a true story. He had no D1 offers going into his senior year. We had the event at Chambers, and the Elon assistant coach was there. And I was doing the PA, believe it or not. And I was trying to get him to be a D1 player. So every time Nick scored, I would say Nick D1 Dorn. Stacy Palmore was the assistant coach, and I've known him for a long time. Yeah. I said, Stacy, you guys got to offer this young man. He's 6'6". He's a late bloomer, just like his brother.
Yeah.
They finally offered him. He's on to Elon. He's blowing up. He's been conference freshman of the year 3 or 4 times already. Yeah. I mean, I just don't get it.
No, that's crazy. They got to recruit him into the year.
And Mario Hansen, another one in this class.
Yeah, absolutely. That's like I said, that sounds like a topic for a future show. All right, Christy, your shout out.
So Randall said earlier about Cameron Kitchen scoring her 1,000th point, but also her teammate from Independence, Chloe Moss, grabbed 500 career rebounds this week, which is huge. And the last one, from what I've researched, it looks like there are 10 remaining girls teams in North Carolina that are still undefeated. And 2 of them are right here in our backyard, Myers Park and East Burke. East Burke 15-0, Myers Park is 17-0. So just a shout out to them.
No, it's hard. It's hard to do that in girls basketball.
And don't tease Barbara about her nickname, Langston.
I never called Barbara grandma coach. Her player called her.
See, you did it. You just did it.
I didn't do it.
Barbara, right into that one, LW.
I didn't do it.
Right into it.
$5, Randall.
I understand that thoughts are important, but I want to tell all the kids out there, winning matters, and winning matters the most. I think when you win, the stats will follow. Just work and do what you need to do, and really just do what your team needs for you to do to win. It's super important. I understand that we want to make these teams and get on these shows, but at the end of the day, winning is what should be most important.
Absolutely. Well, that's another great episode. I appreciate you guys coming on. That's Randall. That's Coach Mitchell, one of the best coaches in CMS history, by the way. Rick Lewis, high school basketball, and Coach Gary celebrated his birthday Saturday. Happy birthday, Gary! Related.
Thank you.
Happy birthday, Coach Rick.
And we are talking.